So good afternoon to all of you. Today in the beginning, I'm going to make you understand the overall syllabus. Okay, we have discussed the syllabus of ancient India in the second class. Let us see some mind maps. Once we are able to see it, eventually the picture will be very clear. We had discussed yesterday till the beginning of the Mughal Empire. Okay, वहाँ तक हमने डिस्कस किया था. बाकी और regional kingdoms रह गए थे. We'll discuss that after this. So the first topic, early medieval India. We have discussed what is the meaning of early medieval. It is mostly about the system of land grants which developed and it eventually started affecting polity, economy, society, religion as well as art and architecture. So the whole compass was affected. That's why we have come up with the word early medieval India. Now let us see. Within this, UPSC has given about the polity of political development including Rajputs, the administration, economy and society of Cholas, Indian feudalism. This is one of the debate. Indian feudalism, was there feudalism or not? We have briefly discussed that when it comes to European feudalism, 3 to 4 aspects are permanent. One was about serfdom, one was about manor, okay, and one was about the integrated setup which was created by the crown itself. But in India, these things were not present. Okay, so those were the issues, but we'll discuss in detail later on. Then urban settlements. Whenever we talk about urban history of India, it has 3 phases. The first phase, all of you are now aware of, it is Harappan civilization. Okay. The second phase, it begins in 6th century BC. This is the second phase. During the early medieval period, we had discussed yesterday that there was decline of economy, paucity of some of the coinage also. So cities were on the decline. So starting from this period, by 1200, we again see the rise of cities, the city networks. That's why the third urbanization, you can roughly say it is 13th century. Okay, so this is one concept which all of you are going to remember. Many times a question comes without asking about the kaun sa urbanization history hai. But in the introduction, you can always give this perspective that in India, urbanization has 3 stages or 3 phases, and this is what you need to remember. Anyway, then when it comes to philosophy, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, which we will discuss today itself, okay, forms of religion, Islam, its arrival in India. We had yesterday discussed about the invasions, right? Those invasions including with the beginning of Muhammad bin Kazim and the annexation of Sindh. This was the first time where we see the arrival of Islam, but it could not increase its footprint into the mainland of India. After the Turkish invasion became successful in 1192, thereafter we see the spread of Islam in India. Okay. Then along with it comes the liberal phase of Islam, that is Sufism. Okay. Then literary development during this time, Kalhana. Now Kalhana is one personality which is famous because he has written the famous text of Rajatarangini, which is often considered as the first true historical text in India. वो हम डिस्कस करेंगे क्या फीचर्स होते हैं बाद में मेन क्लासेस में. Al-Biruni was the personality who had accompanied the famous invader. He was Mahmud Ghazni, and that's why he has written an account of India which is known as Tehqeeq-e-Hind. Okay. Then the temple architecture of overall ancient period. Then these are the topics which we were discussing yesterday. 13th century Delhi Sultanate. So Delhi Sultanate establishment, first we see the Gurian invasions, okay. Then factor behind those success, we had discussed why Rajputs got defeated, okay. Then the impact of the same on economy, society and culture. Then the foundation of early Turkish Sultan, which includes Kutubuddin Aybak. Then comes Iltutmish, and thereafter we see the rise of Balban, okay. So all this we have to study, the rule of Iltutmish, Balban. Then comes the Khalji revolution. We discussed the term Khalji revolution yesterday by seeing the transition from first dynasty to second. This is what Khalji revolution is all about. Then Alauddin Khilji, the conquest, territorial expansion, economic measures. Thereafter comes Muhammad Tughlaq. We had already discussed his major projects yesterday. Okay, then his agrarian measures. One important features of Muhammad Tughlaq's time was the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy had become very wider in nature at this time because he started giving administrative posts to different kind of, you can say, he did not even have a kind of criteria for selection. So if somebody was a teli, he was given the post. Somebody was a kind of carpenter, he was given a post. So that's why the bureaucracy of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, even though it was very heterogeneous, but it was also lacking in the true spirit. Okay, like in civil services, why do we have this exam and process? Because we want to identify the right kind of talent. अगर talent नहीं होगा तो फिर कैसे काम होगा? How innovation is going to come? How the development of India is going to happen? This is one single biggest problem of the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and this was the reason why we see the failure of all of his experiment. Okay, like you tell me, if Modi ji comes up with any kind of scheme, who is the main person who is going to implement it? It's not himself, it's the bureaucracy. If the bureaucratic structure is good, okay, then eventually the outcome is going to be very well. Okay, design कौन करता है किसी भी scheme को? It's the bureaucracy. Politicians are not aware of the fine detail. उनको बस एक पर्चा आएगा लास्ट में कि कितना टॉयलेट इंडिया में बन गया है और वो स्वच्छ भारत अभियान हो गया. For them it is just like this. But the techniques, किस टारगेट कैसे करना है एंड यूज बेनिफिशियरी को, अगर टारगेट कर भी लिया तो हाउ टू मेक देम अवेयर दैट यू हैव टू यूज इट, all those things they are in the hand of bureaucracy. So since he was having a very heterogeneous bureaucracy which was not having any set of criteria, he ended up making a lot of blunders. Then comes Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Firoz Shah Tughlaq was his cousin, and he also come up with some agrarian measures, some achievements in civil engineering also there, because he is the one who built many cities, okay, like Firozabad, you know, with respect to his name itself. Some of his public works. Then the decline of Sultanate. The decline is with respect to what? We had already seen one after the other, the dynasties are switching. First was slave, then comes Khalji, then comes Tughlaq. By 1398, we see a severe invasion. It was done by Timur, and this eventually led to the decline of Delhi Sultanate. Okay. Then the foreign context, and in which we have the Ibn Battuta. We had discussed, he has written Kitabul Hind, in which we were discussing that why the transfer of capital was done from one place to another. There he has written, because the people of Delhi used to abuse the Sultan. Various other information are also provided by him. We will read in detail later on. Then whenever we study any part of history, all of you know by now, we have to cover polity, economy, society. So societal aspects also we have to understand. What was the composition of rural society, how the town dwellers used to live, the status of women, what are the different religious class. One more important thing is about slavery, because these Turks, they all loved having large number of slaves. In fact, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, he created a specific department for this, for managing these slaves. Okay, so that also we'll study later on. Then Bhakti and Sufi movement. The Bhakti movement, when we talk about this, the initial part of Bhakti movement can be linked to 6th-7th century AD, and this starts from Tamil Nadu. Two categories of saints, Alvars and Nayanars. Alvars were followers of Vishnu, Nayanars were followers of Shiva. So this is the first expression of Bhakti. Bhakti essentially means direct connection between the devotee and the God. Direct connection. We do not require any kind of intermediary. Who were the intermediary? They were the Brahmanas. They used to conduct various kind of sacrifices through which we try to please the God. Okay, this is how the Bhakti movement started. And we were discussing yesterday, during early medieval period, it could not rise in North India. The reason was the alliance between Rajputs and the Brahmanas. That's why once in 13th century, we see transfer of power from Rajputs to the Turks. The roots of Bhakti movement became prominent in North India also. and by 14th century it started exploding. Ramananda was one of the famous saints who was responsible for taking the basic tenets of Bhakti movement from south to north. And by 15th, 16th century, we see rise of the famous Kabir, Guru Nanak Ji, and the Bhakti movement itself was divided into two parts. Okay, those who believe that the God is formless, okay, and those who believe that the God has form. So those who believe that the God has form, it is known as Saguna Bhakti, and those who don't, it is known as Nirguna Bhakti. Okay, so along with Bhakti movement, we see various kinds of reforms, beginning of diversified of literature at the local level. All those things got linked to Bhakti movement. So Bhakti movement is a very important topic. Just like ancient India, today we are going to also earmark at the end which topics are more important for the history option from medieval part. तो आपको शुरुआत से ही क्लैरिटी रहना चाहिए उसका, ठीक है. Then the overall art and architecture which is linked with the Delhi Sultanate. All of us know the temple building activities, they declined by the time of medieval India. We see the rise of new kind of monuments, है ना? And what were those? Creation of tombs, right? This is how they started developing the tombs, like Taj Mahal. What is Taj Mahal? This is nothing but a tomb. We see the creation of large forts also at this point of time, right? Like Siri Fort was built by Alauddin Khilji. We see the creation of minars like Qutub Minar. So all this is going to become part of the art and architecture. If you see this room structure is very simple, है ना? Basic आपका column और pillars हैं और कुछ नहीं है as such. But if you see the monuments of Indo-Islamic architecture, you are going to see different kinds of setup, which will have arches, domes, as well as minarets. So all those transformation we are going to study later on, and this is also going to be important for your prelims also. Then literature, economy, with respect to this is also we are going to study. In 15th to 16th century, as we have discussed yesterday, Delhi Sultanate was established in 1206, but it started disintegrating from 14th century itself. It was not that it was done later on, okay. Like the first process was the rise of Vijayanagar, the second was of Bahmani, this in 1336 and this in 1347. Okay, so from the middle of the 14th century itself, the disintegrated started. Then the major invasion of Timur by 1398 also precipitated the downfall of the Delhi Sultanate. And in the first half of the 15th century, we see rise of Gujarat, we see rise of Malwa and other principalities. Alright, so this is how, when the first battle of Panipat was fought in 1526, the Lodhis were having a very small area under their control. They were not having the grandeur of the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. It was mostly, the major hold was in Delhi, Agra and stretched towards the Gangetic Valley. And majority of the other areas, they were already independent. This is how Babur found India's polity in the early 16th century. And this is what was also mentioned in our syllabus. Okay, the rise of these various provincial dynasties including Bengal, Kashmir, Gujarat, Malwa, Bahmani, then Vijayanagar. And thereafter the Mughal Empire, the establishment was done by Babur, Humayun, and also the coming of the Portuguese. Okay, one thing which you need to remember, the Portuguese came in 1498, Vasco da Gama. Okay, he reached to the port of Calicut. Mughals came in 1500. So Portuguese came before them. This also you need to remember. These kinds of questions do not come in mains, they come in prelims. So the early phase of the Mughal, when we see the Mughals, it can be divided into three parts. First, from 1526 till 1540. This also has two parts. The first belongs to Babur from 26 to 30. Then comes to Humayun from 1530 to 40. In between, we see the rise of Sur Empire, Shershah Suri. He was able to defeat Humayun in 1540 in the Battle of Bilgrin, and thereafter we see from 1540 to 55 the rule of Sur dynasty. Humayun was able to win it back in 1555, but he fell from the stairs of the library in which he was studying and he died. And thereafter we see the second phase starting from 1556 till 1707, the rise of famous personalities, Akbar, then his son Jahangir, then Shah Jahan, and finally Aurangzeb. This is the most important phase of the Mughals, because this was a struggling phase. They were fighting time and again for their survival, and once it was able to be stabilized by Akbar, this continued till 1707. And thereafter the third phase, which is roughly the lesser Mughals, till the last ruler, he was sent to Rangoon, okay, and he even died there, Bahadur Shah Zafar, after the revolt of 1857, because he was the nominal leader of the overall revolt. So when we study Mughal Empire, we have to understand this. This is the struggling phase, okay. Somehow they were able to win it back by 1555, and eventually from 1556 to 1707. This is the major part of the Mughals, and maximum questions they come from this one specific area. Good afternoon, Lena, as well as Shantanu. Okay, so this is how you need to understand it. Let us see the further. Then 15th and early 16th century, we also try to understand the rise of Bhakti and Sufi movement. Whenever we see the rise of provincial dynasties, we also see the rise of their architecture, which was a bit different from the mainstream society. Okay, तो उनका भी architecture हमें पढ़ना है. Then when it comes to Akbar, this is where we see the large number of topics, because Akbar was the one who consolidated the Mughal Empire, just like it was Iltutmish who had consolidated the Delhi Sultanate. ठीक है ना, कि मतलब initial consolidation इन्हीं के अंडर हुआ है. After that the challenges जो थे वो finish हो गए. So he will be known for the conquest, establishment of the one of the most famous bureaucratic system, Jahangir and Mansabdari system. This will start. Then his policies of with respect to integration of Rajputs. Thereafter the evolution of his famous religious policy. Then his social outlook. Then the overall theory of Sulhul, as well as patronage of art as well as technology. So Akbar is a very big topic for our option, and we can expect a question from here every second year at least. Then in the 17th century, we see the policies of Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb. Whenever we study about them, Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb, we try to compare them with Akbar to understand the transition, the manner in which these people have been able to do well in the administration or not. Then the empire and the zamindars, because zamindars were not a homogeneous category. There were multiple level of layers. We have to understand them. Then the policies of Jahangir, nature of Mughal state, and finally the beginning of the crisis. Many of you would have heard about the Ahom kingdom. This Ahom kingdom, the Mughals, they tried to capture it, but they were not able to do so. And in fact, they were defeated by Lachit Borkupan. Okay, and that famous battle of Saraighat. So thereafter we see that the Mughals left the eastern part of India alone. उसकी तरफ फिर वापस गए नहीं. We also see the rise of the Maratha kingdom under Chhatrapati Shivaji. Okay, his early career was all about fighting and struggle, and by 1674 he was able to create a kingdom for himself. He was also a terrific empire maker. He was able to create the building blocks of the initial administration. Then along with this, we also try to understand what level of agrarian production was there, crafts, towns. Then this is the time after the Portuguese, we see the arrival of different companies from Europe, which includes Dutch, which includes English as well as the French, and how these initial companies were trying to have a relationship with the Mughal Empire. Okay, that also we'll understand. Then the trade revolution, because now these people were so much interested in exporting the Indian commodities, it led to a kind of trade revolution in Indian subcontinent. Okay, population. Then we also understand the rise of even the Sikh community. The Sikh religion, it was, even though the ideas are more or less around Guru Nanak Ji, but initially he did not establish any religion. With the period of time and the hereditary guruship which it became, by the end of 17th century, we see the development of a Sikh community. So we'll also try to understand and how we see the development of Khalsa Panth. Okay. Then with respect to culture, we'll see the Mughal architecture, paintings, as well as the classical music and science and technology. And then comes the last part, that is the 18th century, a century of transitions. Okay, where we see the decline of the Mughals. Again, we see large number of invasions. Invasions are going to come from Nadir Shah, they are going to come from Ahmad Shah, Abdali. We will see the rise of the British. Okay, so all this is going to be part of this. And when the Mughals were declining, we see the rise of different categories of state in India. Some of them, they were rebellious, like the Jats. Okay, some of them, they were the newer state which were created, and some of them, they were the successor states. They were formed by the previous governors only, which includes your Bengal as well as Awadh and Hyderabad. Okay, this is the overall part, plus the change of the Maratha political system. Earlier, which was mostly controlled by the kings, the most powerful person was Shivaji himself. Okay, after that we see his sons, they were not that much capable, plus at the same time they were persecuted by the Mughals. Okay, like Shambhaji, he was mostly killed, and thereafter Peshwa became the major people in the administration of the Marathas. And finally we see the emergence of Afghan power, the third battle of Panipat, which led to a defeat of Marathas, and they were not able to fulfill their desire of creating an empire in India that could sustain. And last we'll see the culture and economy of the part of 18th century, and then we shift towards modern India. This is the rough sketch which you should have in your mind. Okay, now let us start from yesterday. This was just a basic overview of the syllabus of medieval India. Yesterday was introduction of early medieval and the first half of the medieval India. Now let us try to understand them in detail. So the first famous regional kingdom, it was Vijayanagar. It was established in 1336. It was established by the Sangama brothers known as Harihara and Bukka. Okay. There is a long story behind the establishment of Vijayanagar. Both of them, they were captured by the army of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. They were taken to Delhi, okay, and then they were converted into Islam. Then when they came back to Deccan, they were again reconverted into Hinduism, and then they led the banner of revolt. And this is how Vijayanagar was established in 1336. Now, Vijayanagar is ruled by 4 dynasties. Okay? The first dynasty is Sangama, then comes Sulva, then Tulva, and last one is Aravidu. यहाँ पे लिख देता हूँ, Aravidu is the last one. These are the four dynasties: Sangama, Sulva, Tulva, and final is Aravidu. These are the four dynasties which ruled over the era of Vijayanagar. Okay. Now, Vijayanagar is something which has a lot of important features which we have to understand. When we see the empire of Vijayanagar, their administration has always been an issue of major debate. Okay, and they had this specific system known as Nayankara system, okay, which was built by the Nayakas. We had discussed one term, Ikta system, during the time of Delhi Sultanate. There were various systems under the different administrations. So they had the Nayankara system. Okay, if we see its features, it was a bit sub-autonomous. Just like this, the capital was Vijayanagar itself. It is also known as Hampi. The outer areas, they were given to military commanders, and this was known as Amram land. Land given to military commanders, and these military commanders were known as Nayakas. Plus, if we see in comparison to Ikta were more like military governors. We had seen their duties. What were their duties? Establishment of administration, that is law and order, collection of revenue, maintenance of troops. This is what they were required to do. But when it comes to Nayakas, Nayakas were having even more duties. But at the same time, the level of autonomy was also very high. How? How do we judge the level of autonomy? Okay, so these people could mint their own coins. Okay, they could mint their own coins. They could also have their own flag. Okay, this shows the level of autonomy कि अपने एरिया में वो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. Having a separate army. Okay, in addition to what was always offered to the Iqtadars. So, in a way, they have been considered as semi-autonomous. There is a concept of segmentary state. ठीक है, segmentary states वो बाद में introduce करूँगा, but that is often applied to this dynasty. ठीक है, there is a famous historian Burtonstein who uses this concept of segmentary state. Segmentary state means state is divided in various segments. वो हम बाद में इसके अंदर जाएंगे, because sovereignty, all of you understand the meaning of sovereignty, means having complete independence. Okay, so sovereignty is of two types. It could be ritual based or it could be political power based. Just see the office of Prime Minister and President. Who is the first citizen of India? President. But who holds the power? Whenever there is any big event, who is called first? President, है ना? सबसे पहले उन्हीं का रिपब्लिक डे पे कौन है आगे? वो रहेंगे. So it means he has a sort of ritual kind of sovereignty. Or but when it comes to Prime Minister, he holds the real power. So वो political sovereignty होती है. The sovereignty also had different kind of categories. Yes. नहीं, फेडरल में देखो वो थोड़ा अलग तरीके से, वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बेसिस पे बनता है. यहाँ पे कुछ ऐसा रिटन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं था. ठीक है, यहाँ पे whatever was the will of the king, that was to be eventually transferred into the practices. तो यहाँ पे क्या हुआ since these military commanders were providing the support to the king of Vijayanagar, they were given a large form of autonomy, which is in fact the highest among the state apparatus of all the kingdoms that we will see one after the other. Like even if we'll see the Mansabdari system, all this was not allowed in Mansabdari system. They were just maintaining certain troops. Okay, and for that payment was given to them. Some other portfolio may also be given to those people. But here you can see having on coin, flag, army, all those things were with these Nayakas. Okay, so this was a system which was there. Along with this, we had discussed at the time of discussing the Cholas, they were having a system of self-governance at the level of village. Now this system was also changed by the Vijayanagar. Okay, now the elections were not held and this system came to known as IRS system. Under this, certain village functionaries were given hereditary power. Mostly they were 12 in number. So local governance changed from the time of the Cholas, where the election used to be held. Election, or it was more of a lot system, which we will discuss later on in detail. But it changed to IRS system, where the election etc. was now scrapped, and these people were to take care of the basic functions at the village level. The IRS system में change हो गया. Vijayanagar Empire is again famous for coming of various travelers. Famous travelers came during their time, okay, including the Portuguese like Barbosa, okay, including the Italians like Niccolo Conti, right, even Abdul Razak. So different kind of travelers also came during the time of Vijayanagar, and UPSC time and again asked a question from there, what was the description given by these travelers of Vijayanagar Empire. Vijayanagar Empire had various kinds of important things, like the manner in which their city structure of Vijayanagar was created. It was having different kinds of defense layers. So that has been, yes, 7. Okay, so that has been explained by one of the travelers. The manner in which the markets of the Vijayanagar, they were organized, that has also appealed to these various travelers. They have also given understanding of these various Nayakas. They have also given us information about women, what kind of profession these women used to have. The women used to even have the post of bodyguard. They also used to be like fortune tellers. So all those information has been provided by these travelers. So that's why the description of travelers becomes important with respect to the understanding of Vijayanagar Empire. So if you read the new NCERT आपके पास है ना, medieval India का themes in Indian history volume 2. So there you'll find a chapter dedicated to Vijayanagar that you can read. This provides some information overview. Okay. Its traveler also provide information about the canal system which was developed. Tugabhadra was the river on the banks of which this city was laid, and that's why eventually they were able to create a magnificent city. But it required the efforts of large number of kings. The most famous king is Krishnadev Rai, famous for composition of various kinds of literature in Telugu, in Sanskrit. Okay, those are like the most famous is Amuk Tamallada, which is written by him. Krishnadev Rai ruled from 1509 to 1529 for roughly 20 years. So in a way, he was contemporary of Babur when Babur came to India in 1526. So he is the most considered most powerful personality, Krishnadev Rai. Okay, so just like all other empires, Vijayanagar Empire was also checked in a famous battle of Talikota. Okay, but before discussing that, let us have a brief understanding of Bahmanis, because it was a complete rivalry between Bahmani Kingdom and the Vijayanagar. They kept on fighting with each other for resources. which eventually was going to lead to this battle of Talikota. So let us have a brief of that also. This was established in 1347, okay, and the founder was known as Alauddin Bahman Shah. His other name was Hassan Gangu. He was in the service of one Brahmana whose name was Gangu. That's why some people also call him Hassan Gangu. And after establishing this kingdom, he took the title of Alauddin Bahman Shah. So this is how the Bahmani kingdom was established in 1347. Here we see the system of Tarafdari. Just like Iqtidari system was there in Delhi Sultanate, they established Tarafdari system. Exactly same. Iqta ko taraf kar diya. Alright, so this is how. Initially they were having 4 provinces, okay, or 4 tarafs, which were eventually increased in the coming century to even 8. Now this Bahmani kingdom, as you can see the timeline, 1347, 1336, there is hardly a difference of a decade, 10 साल का difference है. And if we see, let us try to create a map to understand. This was the area which was under the control of Bahmani. This was the area under the control of Vijayanagar. So there was always going to be clash for this rich area of Tungabhadra river, which was fertile. This is what they kept on fighting for. They kept on fighting for the delivery of the good quality horses. As you can see, Arab is the area from where we get the good quality horses. So they tried to extend their control to this area. Okay, there is always a controversy. Like Vijayanagar, it was a Hindu empire, and when you see the Bahmani, it was Islam based. So some historians come up with this theory that because of the religion they kept on fighting, but this was not true. As all of you can understand, in terms of governance, it's the practicality which comes first and religion always comes second. Even in Vijayanagar city, they used to have a mosque. Okay, they used to have archers which were from the Muslim religion. So that's why that theory is not that much acceptable. So the overall factors, the major issues between them were the geographical contiguity, the closeness to each other. Second, with respect to the commanding the trade of these areas of western coast, and plus the rivalry, once it developed, it never went down. This is how the Bahmani, it was created in 1347. The most famous personality of the Bahmani kingdom is not the founder, it is the one of their prime minister, that is Mahmud Ghaban. You can remember his name. The most famous personality of the Bahmanis. When he came to power, he was able to extend the Bahmani Empire towards the east. He was able to even catch some of the areas around the western coast. He also redefined the Tarafdari system. Okay. Also established a madrasa for education, where the books, food, residence, all kind of facilities was provided by him. So he was one of the most prominent personality among the Bahmani. But there was one very big issue in Bahmani Empire. As all of you know, that in bureaucracy there is always rivalry. You know that? That suppose if you become IAS, you become IPS, posted in the same district. Okay, there is always going to be a rivalry, because there are some areas where previously what used to be there, that IAS क्या करता था, एनुअल कॉन्फिडेंशियल रिपोर्ट आपका भरता था IPS का, तो इनके हाथ में एक पावर आ गई ऑन पेपर. ऑलराइट, and if there is any law and order problem, what will IAS do? They will eventually call the IPS to explain. So इसकी वजह से क्या होता है ना, कार्डर्स बन जाते हैं. तो IPS का कार्डर हमेशा किसको सपोर्ट करेगा? An officer of IPS irrespective of who is right or wrong. So bureaucracy always have these groupings, or it could be of IRS. So similarly, here also the bureaucracy had certain differences. There were two major groups, Afakis and Dakhinis. Afakis were the people who used to come from outside, from Persia, from other Arab countries, from Ethiopia. And Dakhini were the original bureaucracy of the area of Dakshin, that is your Bahmani area. So there was always a rivalry between these two for posts, for better kind of patronage. And this was a biggest problem of Bahmani Empire. This was responsible for the conspiracy which led to the death of Mahmud Gawan. This fight was responsible for the eventual split of Bahmani Empire. So Bahmani Empire started crumbling from 1480s, and by the early part of 1520s, it was completely separated into 5 Deccan states. You must have heard their name: Bijapur, Golconda. So this Bahmani Empire, it got divided into 5 states. Okay, Bijapur, Berar, Golconda, Ahmednagar. These were the one in 5 Deccan states. And these 5 Deccan states continued the rivalry with Vijayanagar. So Vijayanagar was still alive. Okay. So the Rajas of Vijayanagar, they used these Deccan states against each other. कभी किसी के साथ alliance बना लेते थे, like with Bijapur, and they used to fight with Ahmednagar. Sometimes with Ahmednagar, used to fight with Berar. So this is how all these Deccan states, they were being controlled by the Rajas of Vijayanagar, and they realized this, and in 1565 all these Deccan states, they landed in the city of Vijayanagar, and the complete city was thrashed, and this became the major reason for the downfall of Vijayanagar. ठीक है, स्टोरी की तरह है. दिस इज व्हाट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि हाँ ठीक है, 2 states were building up, Vijayanagar and Bahmani simultaneously. First to split was Bahmani, and they were being used by these Rajas of Vijayanagar. So once they realized this, it leads to the battle of Talikota. So from in 1565, it gave a crushing blow to the empire of Vijayanagar. So eventually in 1565, then they shifted their headquarters to Panipat in Andhra Pradesh. So Vijayanagar Empire continued. The last dynasty, Aravidu, mostly continued after 1565, and they continued even up to 1672. One more century, but it was a very weak empire, and all these Nayakas, which were part of the erstwhile empire of Vijayanagar, they became very strong. Okay, and you must have heard about the temple of Madurai. So Madurai temple, it was nothing, it was one of the Nayakas of the Vijayanagar who was responsible for the construction of the temple. Vijayanagar is famous for creating even bigger structures when it comes to Dravidian style of architecture or temple architecture. The creation of Rai Gopuram, very big gateways, creation of Amma Shrine. Okay, all these are the parts of Vijayanagar. Even creation of some secular piece of architecture like Lotus Mahal, creation of elephant stables, that is also linked to Vijayanagar. So when it comes to Vijayanagar, there are so many themes. One of the most important topics from South Indian history. UPSC can ask their administration, art and architecture, foreign travelers, their conflict with Bahmani. So themes are very wide. That's why we study this in very detail. Okay, so this continued till 1672, but it became defunct, or at least history is always about the victors, not about the losers. So that's why we always focus till 1565. Later on it becomes an oblivion, you can say, empire. So these were the two prominent empires which we were discussing. Okay? These were the two prominent empires which began by the middle of the 14th century itself. Later on, we see the rise of these smaller states, Gujarat, Malwa, but as such, they are not that much important from our optional point of view. All right. Now let us switch towards the Mughal Empire. As we have already covered the initial part, in 1526, Ibrahim Lodi was defeated by Babur. We had discussed that the Lodis, they had certain problems, like one of that, the theory of kingship. That Afghan theory said it was first among the equals. Okay, that it was responsible for conspiracy by the various nobility of the Lodis. In fact, the uncle of Ibrahim Lodi, Dilawar Khan Lodi, he sent the proposal to Babur to come to India and invade. So this is how in 1526 we see the establishment of Mughal Empire. Babur ruled from 1526 till 1530. Thereafter he died. Thereafter we see the rise of Humayun. So Humayun ruled for 10 years, but he was not able to create any big kind of administration or even stabilize it. The biggest problem was after death of Babur, the Mughal Empire, it was divided between the various brothers, and because of the division of empire, Humayun was never able to have complete authority about each and every part of their empire. And that's why his brothers like Kamran, they did not even help him. When he was fighting with Shershah Suri. So eventually in 1540, he lost his empire to Shershah Suri. Shershah Suri was a phenomenon in terms of a person who started as a soldier, okay, and thereafter he started fighting with the direct king or the emperor Humayun. So Shershah Suri, if we see his profile, prominent in the area of Bihar, okay, started his life as a soldier, was able to kill a lion with his bare hands. That's why he was given the title of Shershah, okay, and his real name was, yes, Farid Khan. Right. So he was the one who took the challenge and eventually defeated Humayun. So the manner in which he defeated Humayun itself was a very practical methods. Okay, whenever Humayun used to go towards Bihar, he used to readily accept that you are the emperor. The moment he used to turn back, he again used to come up with the banner of revolt. And in one of the battles, he fought with the Humayun. He used the clever method like attacking the rival camp in the night. Okay, so various kind of such method. That's why Shershah is considered as having the quality of both lion as well as fox. So he was not a very ethical person. Always took for practical methods. Like when he was fighting with one of the Rajputs. Okay, so he took the attire of a woman, wore it, and entered the fort, and then killed the people inside. So he did everything which was possible and was able to create an empire. So Shershah Suri, he ruled for only 5 years, 1542, 1545. He died when he was at the siege of Kalinjar, one of the famous fort, where because of the untimely strike of one of the granite, he eventually died. So Shershah Suri, but he is famous in history for so many things. He is often considered as the administrative father of Akbar. Okay, let us try to understand the reforms which were done by him. So he was the one who started the process of survey and measurement with respect to agriculture. Okay. He constructed various roads which eventually came to known as GT road. Came up with currency reforms. The silver rupiah, which is even used till today, this was standardized by Shershah. Administration was also reformed by him. Creation of roughly 47 sarkars. Same will be carried on by Akbar. He was liberal in his religious policies. Create a very unique kind of system known as system of local responsibility. Like you must have watched in the movie, how does a mafia operate? कैसे operate करता है? If somebody has done something against a mafia, he is going to give responsibility to his aide that go and finish that person, and somehow they are not able to do so, and that person itself is killed. Same kind of system was established by Shershah Suri. Like if you are a village headman and some kind of crime takes place in your area, and if you are not able to catch the person who is responsible for that crime, then punishment was given to the headman. This was the system of local responsibility. Abbas Khan Sarwani has written a book, okay, or a specific text known as Tariq-e-Sher-Shahi. This provides this information that because of this system of local responsibility, law and order was in a very good shape, because even the local officials, they were in a reign of terror. यार अगर कुछ गलत हो गया तो next day I will be punished. So they were always vigilant. Even though in today's modern standard we cannot apply such a system, but at that point of time this was part of a system. So overall, even in terms of taxation system, he reformed the overall taxation structure, and tax was to be levied only at 2 points. First, whenever there is production, and second, at the time of selling. है ना, जैसे अगर आप देखोगे at the time of production which tax do we have? Excise duty लगती है, ठीक है, और selling के time पे आपका GST लगता है. That kind of a system was created by him at that point of time. Previously, throughout the kingdom, there used to be multiple taxes, and this taxation system was also reformed by this person. So that's why within 5 years he was able to create an lasting legacy, and many of these things were continued by Akbar. Like Akbar continued with this method, which will eventually become A.N.A. Dehsala. Okay, he also carried on this construction of roads. Currency reforms were even further done by Akbar. Okay, even in administration, the creation of Mansabdari System, reform of taxation later on. That's why it is often said that Shershah Suri was the precursor of Akbar, or administrative father of Akbar. ठीक है, तो शेरशाह सूरी के ऊपर भी क्वेश्चन आते रहते हैं, नॉट फ्रीक्वेंटली, 4-5 साल में एक क्वेश्चन आता है. इट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल टॉपिक, जहाँ से एक बार क्वेश्चन आया था तो फिर जल्दी से वापस नहीं आता. लाइक लास्ट ईयर इट केम इन 2020 के बाद अब कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं आया यहाँ से. ठीक है, सो आफ्टर दिस ट्रांजिशन, द डाउनफॉल ऑफ Suri dynasty, we see the rise of Akbar. Akbar has a very long reign, roughly 50 years, half a century. Okay, starting from 1556 all the way up to 1605, 50 years. Initially, he was not capable enough. He was very young when he was put on throne as a boy. That's why he was having a person who was going to take care of administration on behalf of Akbar, and he was Bairam Khan. Okay, so initial 4-5 years, it was Bairam Khan who was helping Akbar in his administration. Starting from 1561 onwards, he took the reign in his own hands. Now Akbar became prominent because of large number of reforms done by him, like one of them was Aine Dehsala, where the average of last 10 years of the produce was taken for the sake of taxation. As all of us know, the only major source of revenue for any of the state at that point in time was agriculture. Okay, and there are always fluctuation in agriculture, all of us know that. So if you take only the current year's yield into picture, you can get very highly taxed. Even today, as if we see the current status of independent India, agriculture is not taxed at all. But at that point of time, without that, nobody could have sustained. There was no modern industry like today. Okay, so they had to do it, but they had to create a fine balance between the requirement of the state and the paying capacity of the peasants. So this system of Aine Dehsala was created. In this, what they used to do, like this is a part of the field, they used to first divide the land into 4 parts: Polaj, Paruti, Chachar and Banjar. पहले 4 पार्ट में आपके पूरे लैंड को डिवाइड कर दिया. Polaj is that part of the area which is cultivated every year, or the fertile land. Paruti roughly every 2 years. Chachar 3 to 4 years. Okay? And suppose if there is some area which is Banjar, which is cultivated only in 4 to 5 years. So first the land was divided into 4 parts. This was the first step. Second, in every part, they used to come up with cutting of 3 area. Like this is a cultivated area, which is fertile, but this also have some differential level of production in the area. So कुछ area पे बहुत अच्छा production होगा, then this कहीं पे bad होगा, कहीं पे middling होगा. So all the 3 area would be cut, and then the average will be taken for every specific area. Then the third part of the algorithm would be the average of last 10 years. So when all these 3 are combined, it becomes Aine Dehsala system. So this was a very good system which was created by him. Okay, and the major person or the major mind behind was Raja Todermal. Okay, Raja Todermal was the one who eventually created this system, and Akbar gave full responsibility to him for doing so. Okay, so this was one of the system which was created by him. Second, it was the Mansabdari system. So in Mansabdari system, there was a system of dual ranks, Jat and Savar. Jat, this was the personal rank, and Savar, this was more about the number of cavalrymen, horses, which one has to keep. Alright? Jat is the rank, like whenever you reach the field, a certain kind of title is given to you. ठीक है? कि आपको assistant collector मिलेगा, फिर धीरे आप deputy collector बनोगे, then eventually you will become collector. So this is how the rank was given. But in Mansabdari system, the rank was given in decimal system. Abul Fazl is the person who has written the famous Akbar Nama, and he provides the total number of ranks were around 66, okay, which were given to different set of people. And Savar was all about how many cavalrymen they have to keep. This Mansabdari system worked for civil as well as military works, and this became the mainstay of the Mughal system. Okay, System was developed roughly around 1567, and with the period of time, it keep on changing. Then Akbar is also famous for his religious policy. All of you understand the difference between Shia and Sunni? No? Yes? No? From where does it start? It starts from the way the lineage was transferred from the Prophet Muhammad. ठीक है? तो Shia और Sunni in basic terms में बस इतना समझ लो. Shia is considered as more liberal in nature. Sunni are the one who consider roughly the Quran, that Quran should be followed on each and every thing. So they are relatively more rigid in nature. So these Mughals, they were Sunni. Okay. So by nature, they should have been more conservative in nature. But something happened to Akbar that he became a very liberal person. One of the first influence was Bahram Khan. Bahram Khan, he was a Shia, and his sons Abul Fazl, Faizi, okay, they were also very close to Akbar, and that's why Akbar relatively was in the fold of the Shias. Thereafter, Akbar started having close relation with the Rajputs, okay, and his wives, they were Hindu. Okay, so with the period of time, Akbar started having a very liberal kind of religious policy. One major change which began with the coming of Islam, that one tax was collected known as Jizya. Okay, so what was this? Like, suppose if I am a Muslim ruler and your religion is not Islam, so I am going to impose a tax known as Jizya, which will be for your protection. Okay, so this Jizya tax differentiated between Muslim subjects and Hindus, because this tax was imposed on the Hindus, and this tax was first imposed by Muhammad bin Qasim, okay, after the annexation of Sindh. Then later on this was established even by Delhi Sultanate. Alright, but by the time of Akbar, Akbar was not able to understand this difference, why this should be done. So with the period of time, Akbar started these reforms, like he abolished Jizya, he even abolished a pilgrimage tax. Okay, whenever people used to go for pilgrimage, then tax was imposed. This was also abolished by him. Also began the process of social reforms, like forceful sati, it was not allowed by him. During the later part of his reign, he even allowed conversion into Christianity. Okay, he came under the influence of some of the missionaries, he even started allow the conversions. Developed a famous place known as Ibadat Khana. At this place, Ibadat Khana, there used to be discussion between the scholars of different religions, and through these discussion he came to realize that truth is in all religions. That's why this artificial differentiation between people should not be there. So because of all these things, Akbar is considered as a unique person in medieval history, who was able to do large number of reforms and create a similar level of citizenship for all his subjects. Maximum number of people were Hindus at that point of time. Okay, but still, since there was a differentiation because of Jizya, differential citizenship was there. But with the abolition of Jizya, same kind of treatment was now given to all subjects, and this was something different which we see in medieval India. So Akbar became a very prominent person because of all these reforms that he did in the religious sphere or the steps taken by him. During the later part of his time, he started believing in the concept of Sulh-e-Kul, means universal peace. Okay, and all these ideas became very prominent and responsible for creating a Rajput bureaucracy. Otherwise, they could not have been given that much administrative work by him, since his religious policy was liberal in nature. Okay, so these are the various dimensions on which UPSC often asks questions with respect to Akbar. After Akbar, we see the rise of Jahangir. As all of you know, if your family is very rich, the next generation is always going to enjoy. Like all of you are working hard for civil services, the next generation is going to enjoy the benefits of your hard work. Similar things happened with Jahangir. Okay, so Akbar had already created an empire, that was done. Jahangir came to power, addicted to wine. Okay, then he married Noor Jahan. So he is the only person among the Mughals who has written his own autobiography. Okay, and in which he has confessed, I gave up my kingdom for a glass of wine and one woman. Meaning his whole kingdom was controlled by Noor Jahan. Noor Jahan, along with her brother, started controlling all the appointments of the Mughals. He was the one who was more interested in painting. So maximum growth of the Mughal painting, it starts with Jahangir. At the time of Humayun, as all of you know, when he was in refuge, when he was thrown away by Shershah, so he went to Persia, so lived there for 15 years roughly. So at that point of time, when he came back, he became fond of paintings. He came with two prominent personalities, Abdul Samad and Mir Sayyid Ali. Then Akbar started the department of Tasveer Khana, where large number of painters were brought and they were allowed to make the manuscripts. ठीक है कि जो भी स्टोरीज हैं उनको एक आप पिक्टोरियल में पेंट कर दो. But it was the time of Jahangir where we see the beginning of portrait painting, focus on the natural themes and the fineness of the borders of paintings. All such changes were done by Jahangir. Okay, so Jahangir is someone who is more known for painting and wine. He created a chain of justice also. Chain of justice, so that he is accessible to people for any kind of problem that they are facing. But a person is only accessible when he is not consuming wine. तो इनकी पूरी जो लाइफ है वो इसके आसपास रह गई. ठीक है. After Jahangir, we see the eventual rise of Shah Jahan. Now Shah Jahan is mostly famous for architecture. You see Taj Mahal, you see the Red Fort of Delhi, Jama Masjid of Delhi, all of these, they are linked to Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the one who put a lot of emphasis on using gemstones for building for inlay work, that is known as Pietra Dura. He started focusing on using white marble. He even reformed the Charbagh style, which was brought in by Babur. Charbagh means if this is the layout, then the garden was divided into 4 parts and the main building was constructed in the center. This is known as Charbagh. But during his reign, there was a little transformation and the whole building was made in one corner, and that was also on a raised platform. So Shah Jahan was the one who focused more on architecture. He also tried to go towards Central Asia. There is one famous Balkh campaign where he sent Aurangzeb for fighting. Even if then they were able to win the area of Balkh in Central Asia, but they were not able to hold for longer time. And that's why eventually the westward expansion, didn't materialize under Shah Jahan. So Shah Jahan then again focused on the Deccan states. The Deccan state, which had begun with the dissolution of the Bahmani Empire, had continued. Okay, so he was the one who tried to annex them. Thereafter, finally, we see the rise of Aurangzeb. So just like Akbar, he also has a roughly reign of 50 years. The problem with Aurangzeb was that he was a very rigid kind of person, having complete faith in Quran, following everything literally, used to read namaz 5 times a day, and he was not the number one contender for the throne. The main contender was Dara Sikho, his elder brother or the elder son of Shah Jahan. So he had to fight a war of succession, and then only he could come to power. And for that, eventually, it took the support of the religious class, which was ulamas. The manner in which he came to power with the support of the religious class, now to appease them, he had to follow some rigid religious policies, which included destruction of new temple, destruction of old temple, okay, banning of the public processions of the Hindus at the time of the celebration of Holi, Diwali, etc. So various policies or the major religious policy of Aurangzeb, it narrowed down the base of the Mughals. Mughals, who were known for broad-mindedness, now became narrow in nature, and he was responsible for that. Similarly, he tried to expand Mughal Empire towards Deccan. He conquered the state of Bijapur as well as Golconda. So all the Deccani states, they were eventually finished off by Aurangzeb by 1687. And then he committed one of the blunders, that was the execution of Shambhaji in 1690. That's why Marathas, they became completely against Aurangzeb. In the mid 1680s, he shifted to Deccan so that he can conquer this area. From this time till his death, he remained busy in this warfare. And after the execution of Shambhaji, which he proclaimed, it happened in 1690. Last 2 decades of his life, they were completely messed up, and they kept on fighting with the Marathas. And the main issue with Marathas was, it was not a centralized movement. They used the methods of guerrilla warfare, and in guerrilla warfare there is no central authority. This Maratha Sardar kept on fighting with them, and he also kept on doing so. That's why by 1707, when he eventually died, the Mughal Empire was not having any prominent successor. Plus, the problem of the Maratha increased humongously by that time, and the Mughals started declining. All the prominent personality, Asaf Shah, he went and created Hyderabad. Murshid Quli Khan, they went towards Bengal. ठीक है, so जितने भी prominent personalities थे now are more or less affected by the death of Aurangzeb. No leader was left behind to take care of such a big empire. That's why after this we see the rise of people like Muhammad Shah Rangila. Muhammad Shah Rangila, he was a famous Kathak dancer. The Mughal Empire was not having the big personalities, they were having big dancers. And when Nadir Shah invaded India at the time of Muhammad Shah, he put down in front of him, है ना, उसके सामने आके पैर पकड़ लिया कि मुझे माफ कर दो, एक बार कथक का परफॉर्मेंस करवा लो बेशक से, ठीक है. So the grand Mughals who used to rule India, they were now just in name after the death of Aurangzeb. And it was the policies of Aurangzeb which were responsible for that. Religious policy which completely dissatisfied one community. His Deccan policy which dissatisfied the Maratha Sardars. The manner in which all the revenue of the states were kept on used in the fighting. Okay, and this created a big problem for the Mughals. So when he died in 1707, we did not have any powerful personality. Like you also think, when somebody ruled for 50 years, 60 years, their whole next generation is now mostly उसका आदत ही नहीं रहा responsibility लेने का. Like you see in case of Britain, Queen Elizabeth ruled for so many years, है ना, at least nominal. So his son Charles अब बुढ़ापे में आए हैं. अब बुढ़ापे में कहाँ तलवार लेके घूमेंगे if he has to do something. Similarly in 1707 when Bahadur Shah first he came to power, he was very old, है ना, 68 years के थे. वो कहाँ तलवार लेके घूमेंगे उस टाइम पे. And by that time the bureaucracy, है ना, we had discussed bureaucracy in the case of Bahmani. Similarly the bureaucracy of the Mughals now also started fighting with one another, started creating alliances. Okay, like there was one famous, these two brothers known as Sayyid brothers. They started creating more and more kind of turbulence in the Mughal politics. They started choosing their own favorites. Okay, and this was the problem which will eventually lead to decline of the Mughals. And in 1739, we see the major battle of Karnal, in which Nadir Shah took away the prized peacock throne, Kohinoor, for which we Indians are always very emotional. कि लेके चले गए. Okay, so that was taken during the time of Muhammad Shah Rangila. And thereafter the Mughals remained only in name. We see a transition towards modern India. ठीक है, तो मुगल्स का जो पूरा टॉपिक है which we need to understand, उसमें हमें सबसे ज़्यादा किस चीज़ पे फोकस करना पड़ेगा? First, the beginning, the manner in which Babur was able to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. Second, the major policies of Akbar. This is from where majority of the questions come. Third, the reversal of the policies by Aurangzeb. And finally, the weaknesses which were responsible for the decline of the Mughal Empire. Some side topics like paintings and architecture also have to be done seriously, because every year at least one question will come from art and architecture, and which will be of very easy level. It's not going to be very difficult as such. Now let us see Marathas. So Marathas, they rose under Shivaji. Okay. Shivaji initially served under these Deccani states. Okay, he served under them. Then he came in conflict with Aurangzeb, fought with Aurangzeb, okay, or his generals. Eventually he was defeated in one of the battle, took to Agra, where he thought that he is going to be speaking to Aurangzeb, but Aurangzeb put Shivaji in jail. The manner in which he escaped the jail is still a kind of rumor, है ना, कि कैसे हुआ, किस तरीके से हुआ. So Shivaji eventually hardened his stance against the Mughals, and thereafter when he went to Deccan, he established Savrajya in 1674. Okay, he was a terrific empire builder. Created one of the most sound kind of administration known as Ashta Pradhan, in which 8 prominent functionaries were created, which all of you understand. ठीक है ना, क्या क्या होते हैं main functionaries? There is going to be one Nyayadhish or the justice. Okay, Peshwa was the prime minister. son Dabir to take care of the foreign affairs. So just like this, Ashtapradhan has 8 important officers. This was created by Shivaji. He also created uniform taxation for the peasantry. All the different kind of cesses, they were abolished, and 40% of the land revenue, this was taken as tax by him. Okay. Along with this, he also built the army. Army was built. The system of creation of forts. Okay, forts were also created. So these forts were used by him for defense as well as offense throughout the region. So he was the one who established the name of Marathas, and eventually he died by 1680. And thereafter, the second line was not that much competent. Not as much competent. As we have just discussed, Shambhaji was executed by Aurangzeb in 1690. And thereafter, we see very weak king with very weak character. So, this was the time where the Peshwas or the prime ministers, they took power in their hand. And we had famous Peshwa like Balaji Vishwanath. Then we have Bajirao first, Bajirao second. Then the famous personality like Nana Fadnavis. These became the major Peshwas, and they were the one who are now going to expand the empire of the Marathas. So in medieval India, we mostly study about Shivaji, okay, their conflict with Mughals. And when it comes to modern India, we study the rule of Peshwas. All of you understand the 3 major wars which were fought between the English and the Marathas. The first by 1775 to which ended in 82 with the Treaty of Salbai. Second started with the signing of Subsidiary Alliance Treaty by Balaji Bajirao second, and 1802 which started with the Treaty of Basin, and third they were finished off by 1818, and the Peshwaship was abolished, and the last Peshwa was sent to Bithur, very close to Kanpur. ठीक है. So in medieval में तो मराठा का जो टॉपिक है वो स्प्लिट है. Some part will come in medieval and some part will come in modern India. If we see the beginning of the overall scenario of 18th century, this is also what you need to understand. So the whole 18th century, the defining year is always going to be death of Aurangzeb, 1707. Starting from 1707 till 1764, very big reversal will be seen by the Mughals. Like in 1739, it was whom? Nadir Shah, who defeated the Mughals in the Battle of Karnal. Then, thereafter, we see the invasions by Ahmad Shah Abdali. Starting from 1740s, he started invading, which eventually led to the third battle of Panipat. 1764, all of you know, in the battle of Buxar, the nominal king Shah Alam II, he participated and they were defeated by the British. So, by the middle of the 18th century, Mughals were now just only in the name. This was the time where we see the rise of various categories of states. Successor state like that of Asaf Jah or Nizamul Mulk, who created Hyderabad. Rebellious state like the Marathas or the Jats, and even some independent states like the state of Travancore or even Rajputs. So the whole India in 18th century was now divided in these smaller states. We see decentralization of power again coming into picture. You must have realized by now that this centralization and decentralization is always going to come in cycles. हाँ ना ही है. There can never be complete stability throughout centuries. See India's politics also from 1950 till today. We have seen initially there was centralization, then we see the coalition politics which dominated India for roughly 25 years, है ना? And then again from 2014 onwards we see centralization of power because one party was able to get the majority. Similarly you have to see in history also, जैसे हमने देखा that from the early medieval period it was more about decentralization, rise of feudal lords. Starting from 13th century onwards till the invasion by Timur or 13th or 14th century, we see centralization of power. Then again decentralization. The 15th century was more about decentralization. By early 16th century, again we see the establishment of the Mughal Empire, and this Mughal Empire continued till the beginning of 18th century. Again in 18th century we see the split of the power into large number of states. So we should remember this transition, because once we remember the transition we have to only focus on the major issues. This is what we have to study in medieval India. Okay. So if we see the overall medieval India, UPSC is going to ask question from early medieval. They will ask question from Delhi Sultanate, Mughals, Vijayanagar, Marathas, and the transition of and the debates of 18th century. These are the most prominent topics for you. Okay, these are the most important topics for you when it comes from optional point of view. अभी आप उपिंदर सिंह पढ़ना स्टार्ट कर सकते हो, ठीक है? कोई भी एक से स्टार्ट कर लो, ज़्यादा पढ़ने के चक्कर में मतलब सबकी बुक, बिकॉज फॉर मिडेवल इंडिया आई एम गोइंग टू रेकमेंड BA IGNOU notes. In BA IGNOU notes we have 2 booklets which are very good. ठीक है, बहुत अच्छे से मिडेवल के टॉपिक्स को कवर करते हैं. All of you must have heard about सतीश चंद्रा NCERT, बट वो बहुत पुराना हो गया है, वहाँ से अब ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन वगैरह आता नहीं है. एंड moreover they only cover the political history. The rest of the areas of economy, society are not covered very well. So BA IGNOU note is the best source for medieval India. For ancient India, we already have discussed, it is Upinder Singh. उसको सबसे ज़्यादा वहीं से आने वाला है. उसका आपको पेजेस देंगे कौन कौन सा आपको पढ़ना है, पूरा बुक नहीं पढ़ना है. I'll tell you chapter by chapter. Okay. सतीश चंद्रा की एक NCERT आती है, 2 बुक्स भी आती हैं अलग से, वॉल्यूम 1 वॉल्यूम 2, ठीक है, बट वो भी सारी पॉलिटिकल में ही घूम फिर के खत्म हो जाती हैं. तो हमें सबसे मिनिमम सोर्स पढ़ना है. वी शुड नॉट गेट अटैच टू सतीश चंद्रा कि विल ओनली रीड हिज बुक, है ना, उसको ज़रूरत नहीं है. हमें सिर्फ ये देखना है कि हमारा कहाँ से फ़ायदा होने वाला है एंड व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू इन द एग्जाम. ओके, कीप दैट एज द लिटमस टेस्ट ऑफ एनी बुक पढ़ने से पहले. तो आप BA IGNOU को सबसे ज़्यादा प्रायोरिटी देंगे. बाकी देखो, आपको क्लास नोट्स में क्लास डिस्कशंस, PYQ डिस्कशन विद इन द क्लासेस, हर चीज़ आपको मिल जानी है. आप कंसेप्ट बिल्डिंग पे सबसे पहले ध्यान दीजिए. इफ द कंसेप्ट आर बिल्ड वेरी वेल देन वी कैन गो इशू वाइज, क्योंकि मैक्सिमम टाइम तो स्टोरी भी नहीं पता होती ना, स्टोरी क्या है पूरी एंशिएंट इंडिया की, मिडिएवल इंडिया की. नाउ बाय टुडे वी हैव कवर्ड द होल स्टोरी ऑफ एंशिएंट एंड मिडिएवल इंडिया. एटलीस्ट नन ऑफ द वर्ड्स नाउ आर न्यू टू यू. सुन लिया कम से कम, हाँ ये कौन सा सिस्टम है. लेट अस ब्रीफली सी द कंसेप्ट लिस्ट व्हिच इज गिवन टू यू. So the first part is chronology. I think it is clear to all of you what is the meaning of early medieval India, the Sultanate period and the Mughal period. They are very easy. Then some communities like Rajputs, we had discussed about that origin, है ना, origin के बारे में बात किया था. Which was that? Prithviraj Rajput, written by Chand Bardai, talking about the Agnikul myth. Then within Turks we see Ghaznavids was the first, like Mahmud of Ghazni, then the Muhammad of Ghuri, that was the Ghurid Empire. So in 1192 the Ghurid Empire's extension was India only, and in 1206 it became independent. Then the Arabs, Afghans, Mongols, Mughals, Marathas, these are the various ethnic groups which are going to become repeatedly, जो आप already समझ चुके हो, ठीक है. Political concept, theocratic. What is the meaning of theocratic or theocracy? Theocracy means the political head is also the religious head. Like we see the institution of caliph in Turkey, where they were also political as well as religious head. There is one debate which we'll discuss in Delhi Sultanate. Some people say, was this Delhi Sultanate a theocracy? Means Sultan was having political as well as religious powers. Okay, तो वो तब डिस्कस करेंगे. इसलिए वर्ड चिहलगानी आई थिंक इज वेरी क्लियर टू ऑल ऑफ यू. तुर्काने चिहलगानी, दिस वाज द इंस्टीट्यूशन क्रिएटेड बाय इल्तुतमिश for creating a bureaucracy that he can trust. Okay, and then eventually this was destroyed by Balban. Then despotism. Despotism means being very ruthless in the approach. Plus we see there is merger of all three power. है ना, कौन कौन सा power है? Executive, legislature and judiciary. When these three are combined in one person, they are known as despot. Okay, then comes tripartite struggle. All of you know the three dynasties involved in this: Palas, Pratihara and Rashtrakutas. Feudalism is all about the concept of Europe, okay, where we had discussed that it has certain features like serfdom, manor, as well as the role of the kings in recognizing the power of these feudal lords. Samanta is the Indian version of feudalism. Sovereignty is all about having the independent authority in external affairs. Nayaka is the system of the Vijayanagar, which we have discussed. Their military governor were known as Nayakas. Then Amram system, I think you are very clear about it. Amram was the local functionary system of the Vijayanagar. Then the social concept like Parda system, all of you know what is Parda. Rayat is nothing but the peasant. Okay, Mukaddam, Khot and Mukaddam, you can just mark both of them. These were the titles given to village headmen in different area, Khut and Mukaddam. Then Zamindar is a very wide word. It was first seen in the writings of Abul Fazl uses it. Okay, इसको बाद में समझेंगे, बट इसके अंदर काफी टायर्स हैं, which includes later on even the Rajputs. ठीक है, जमींदार बहुत ही डिफरेंट सा टर्म है, बाद में समझेंगे अच्छे से. Khalisa. Khalisa is the land which was under the direct control of the Sultan. Inam जो piece of land which was given to some person for have some good kind of deeds, that is known as Inam. ठीक है. खरज, गरी, ये दोनों एक तरीके के टैक्सेस हैं. Jizya we have just discussed. ठीक है. Hundis they were just like the commercial bill. If you want to transport okay, if you want to send money from one place to another, अभी तो digital system है, previously it was not there. So what used to be there, like suppose there is merchant A in Delhi, merchant B in Mumbai, and you are C and you want to send money from Delhi to Mumbai. तो एक तरीका क्या है, at that point of time you go yourself from Delhi to Mumbai. The other method is through the use of these two merchants who are connected to each other. So what used to happen, like if they want to send 1 lakh rupees, so they would deposit this 1 lakh rupee at this merchant and they are going to provide hundi or commercial bill to you. Okay, and when you reach this place, you will show this bill to merchant number B. He will deduct a % for the transfer of money from place A to place B. है ना. When you move from one place to another, if you are carrying that much cash, there's always a kind of security threat. So that threat is taken care by these merchants, and that's why at this place you can easily get at a minimal fee of 2%. So you will get how much money? 98,000. So your money were transferred from Delhi to Mumbai at a fee of 2% between these merchants, and initially you were given a certificate for recognition, इसको आप वहां जाके दिखा सकते हो. आज की डेट में आपने सुना होगा द हवाला सिस्टम. हाउ दिस वर्क्स? नोट के ऊपर एक नंबर होता है, वो आपको दे देते हैं, दूसरी जगह आप नोट का नंबर बताओगे एंड देयर विल बी द मनी. So this is how it used to work in medieval India. This is Hundi system. Then these various religious terms. Vaishnavites means followers of Vishnu. Shaivite followers of Shiva. Alvar and Nainar we have discussed. Tantric practice means focus on various categories of rituals, and they believe in 5 fundamental things which we'll discuss later on. Okay. Qawwali is all about the method through which these various Sufi saints used to sing and try to merge their consciousness with the God. Bhakti and Sufi movement. Bhakti movement is directly linked with, like we have discussed today also, starts from South India, comes to North, and thereafter it has various categories of leaders. Sufi movements starts from the area of Baghdad, comes to India along with the coming of the Turks, and then eventually with the period of time we see various schools of these Sufis. So there were roughly 12 to 14 schools of Sufis, and most famous school was Chishti. You must have heard the word Moinuddin Chishti. Then ulama is the religious class. Khanak is the hospice or the area where these Sufi people used to live and provide guidance to their supporters. Okay? Khanak is just like their areas, and silsila means schools of Sufis. Okay. In the policies, like the Hesala system is always about the system which we have already discussed. The average of last 10 years was taken for the sake of taxation. Jabti system was the earlier system which was created by Shershah Suri, which was then reformed by Akbar. Okay. Dag system, you understand, the branding of the horses. Sulaykul means universal peace. Okay. Then comes Jajmani system. So Jajmani system is a very prominent system in India. And this mostly works in the villages. So mostly the producer class, they are peasants or farmer in every village, but people who provide other kind of services, like somebody could be ironsmith, barber, or teli, etc., etc. So what used to happen in the villages, at the time of harvest of produce, peasants used to provide some harvest or grains directly to the service class, and throughout the year service class used to provide their services to them. Okay? So this system is known as Jajmani system, where we do not see the use of cash for services. Traditional methods, barter system is used for this. This is known as Jajmani system. Saranjami system was a system which was established by the Marathas. Okay? Ekta system, Ijaradari and Mansabdari we have already discussed. Ijaradari is just about revenue farming. इसमें क्या होता है? Rather than survey and assessment, you are going to bring in contractors. They'll say, I'm going to deposit this much money with the state. Like if I give the area of old Rajendra Nagar, if some contractors say, I'll pay 15 crore to the government, so government is going to take money from the contractor, and contractor is going to collect from the area of Warren. This system is known as Ijaradari system of farming. This was brought in by whom? It was used by Firoz Shah Tughlaq. This was also used by Aurangzeb. Okay. Then these various classes like Mahajan, Chetis, okay, Banjara. Banjara was the people who used to transfer the goods between the villages and the towns. Okay. Karkhana were the areas where the production used to happen during the time of Delhi Sultanate as well as Mughals. Shroffs, they were the community who used to work like money changers. ठीक है, आजकल अगर आप कोई भी फॉरेन कंट्री जाना है तो यू हैव टू एक्सचेंज मनी, तो दैट वर्क वाज डन बाय श्रॉफ्स. ठीक है. मिल्कियत, इट इज नथिंग बट अ काइंड ऑफ इनाम की तरह ही था. ठीक है, जो आपको मिलता था. महाजन एंड चेतीस, दीज वर द फेमस merchants of the time of medieval India. So these are the various terms which you will find when you will be reading the NCERT. जियारत is always like a, कि मतलब जब आप कहीं जाते हो किसी भी रिलीजियस प्लेस पे जाके अपना फेथ प्रकट करते हो, दैट इज नोन एज जियारत. ठीक है. लाइक होता है ना, दरगाह पे जाते हैं, दैट इज जस्ट लाइक जियारत. जैसे अजमेर शरीफ बहुत फेमस है इसके लिए. ठीक है, दैट इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ जियारत. So we have created a self assessment test for all of you. 4 से 5 क्वेश्चन है इसमें. ठीक है, आप इसको वीकेंड पे लिखने की कोशिश करेंगे. ऑन मंडे फर्स्ट आई विल डिस्कस देम. ठीक है, क्या इनका मीनिंग होगा, कैसे आंसर लिखना है आपको. बहुत ही इजी क्वेश्चंस है. दिस इज योर सेल्फ असेसमेंट टेस्ट, है ना, जो हमें आज आपको प्रोवाइड करना था. तो ये आप लिखने की कोशिश करना. एंड फॉर ऑल द एनरोल्ड स्टूडेंट दिस विल बी इवन इवेल्युएटेड बाय आवर कॉपी चेकर टीम. ठीक है, वो उसको चेक करेंगे एंड विल हैव डिस्कशन ऑन मंडे. ब्रीफ डिस्कशन करेंगे इसका एंड देन विल स्टार्ट विद मॉडर्न इंडिया ऑल्सो. ठीक है. टुडे वी आर हैविंग अ वेबिनार फॉर जनरल ओवरऑल क्वेरीज ऑफ सिविल सर्विसेज. तो अगर आप में से किसी को ज्वाइन करना हो तो वो ऑनलाइन रहेगा जूम पे, तो आप 6 बजे उसको ज्वाइन कर सकते हो. ठीक है, यू कैन टेक द लिंक आपको प्रोवाइड कर देंगे व्हाट्सएप पे. जो काउंसलर टीम है आपको प्रोवाइड कर देगी. ऑल द ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स ऑल्सो वी हैव अ वेबिनार. लिंक विल बी शेयर्ड इन द ग्रुप ऑफ टेलीग्राम. फ्रॉम देयर यू कैन ज्वाइन अस. Whatever doubt you have for civil services of any other kind, it's not limited to optional. You can ask that today. ठीक है, वेबिनार में पूछ लेना. हाँ, बाबर ने भी लिखी थी, बट अमंग दीज लेटर पीपल. ठीक है, बाबर का तो सबको पता ही है. ठीक है, he has written in which language? टर्किश. बाद में उसको शिफ्ट कर दिया था. ठीक है, बाद में उसको बाबरनामा बना दिया था. जैसे when we talk about ना कि भाई he was the only one, so we always try to compare in stages. मुगल्स में जो हमारा रहता है हमेशा अकबर, जहांगीर, शाहजहां एंड औरंगजेब का, तो वो जो उस कंटेक्स्ट में मैंने बोला था. लाइक व्हेन वी से अकबर वाज अनएजुकेटेड, ऑल ऑफ यू नो दैट, है ना, ही वाज अनएजुकेटेड. But Jahangir, he was educated, but still indulged in various kind of frivolous activities. Okay, so that's it for today. Lina, BA IGNOU is enough for medieval India. NCERT just for understanding the basics. So you can read it once, but your optional preparation main base is always going to be IGNOU notes. Okay.